It was the smile that made her stomach turn. Not the blood, there was plenty of that, but the smile. White, still, as if carved on with a knife. It didn't twitch. It didn't flinch. It just watched her bleed. And in that moment, as her knees buckled and her vision doubled, something primal kicked in. He wasn't trying to kill her quickly. He wanted her to feel it. Every second, every heartbeat, every drop. The headlines would later scream, "Vampire Killer of London," like it was folklore. But for 22-year-old Rena Kale, it was not a myth. It was the night the air tasted like iron and the walls whispered her name. Rena wasn't supposed to be there. The warehouse on Eelmoor Street had been abandoned for years. She'd passed it 100 times on the bus, a crumbling eyesore behind the petrol station. But tonight, this night, she had followed the wrong signal. A message. No number. Just a single line. "I know what he did to your sister." She hadn't spoken Ria's name aloud in months. Ever since Ria disappeared 2 years ago, London had been a blur. Grief, therapy, useless police. They found her sister's phone in the river. Not her body. Not even a piece of clothing. Nothing. Until tonight. The second she stepped inside the warehouse, something felt off. It was too cold. Not winter cold. Not draft cold. It was cellar cold. Deep cold. Death cold. Like the kind that didn't come from wind, but from things that used to breathe. The floor crackled beneath her boots. Fragments of glass, old flyers, cigarette butts. And somewhere far off, a steady drip echoed through the hall, slow and irregular, like a leaking pipe or something else. She called out, "Hello!" No answer. Just the shuffle. That unmistakable shuffle of a bare foot against concrete. Rena's heart thudded. And then the smell. Not sewage. Not mildew. It was coppery, like rust and rot mixed into something warm. It hit the back of her throat. Blood. Someone had bled recently. She spun. Shadows stretched and collapsed as her flashlight trembled in her hand. She saw graffiti, broken pallets, an old red coat nailed to the wall. But no sign of him. Not yet. Flashback. 6 months ago. Therapy room. A worn couch. A too-silent clock. "I still see her," Rena whispered to Dr. Hanley. "She's standing in the rain. But her mouth isn't moving. And her neck. It's wrong. Like something's missing." The doctor tilted his head. "What do you mean, missing?" "I mean," Rena had replied slowly, her throat, "it's open. But she's still standing." Now, in this warehouse, Rena saw her again. Just for a second. At the end of the corridor. Wet hair. Hollow stare. Open throat. Gone. "Stop it!" She hissed at herself, gripping the torch. "You're not crazy." But then she heard it. The voice. Low. Crooked. Male. "Rena, you finally came." He stepped out of the darkness like he'd always belonged in it. Tall. Shirtless. Pale. His mouth glistened with something wet and red. She froze. Who are you?" she demanded. But her voice broke in the middle. He smiled. "Do you bleed like her?" he asked softly. Flashback again. 1 week before. Her mother sobbing over a newspaper. "Another one," she whispered. "Another girl drained. And they say it was ritual." The article had shown teeth marks. Precise ones. Not torn like an animal. Not messy like a psycho. Clean. Surgical. And Rena had flinched at the picture. Because the position the body was found in was exactly how she saw her sister in her dreams. Now, back in the warehouse, the man stepped closer. And she saw it, his eyes. They weren't fully black. Just the center. But the whites, veined with red. Like something had burst inside him. He whispered. She tasted like regret. And Rena ran. But the door she'd entered was gone. Literally just gone. In its place, a solid concrete wall. She screamed. And from above, a chain dropped down. A single silver chain with a hook at the end, swaying like a pendulum. "I saved the same one for you," the voice said again. It was the warmth of the breath on her neck that made Rena freeze. Not just because someone was behind her. Not just because her sister's phone, missing for 2 years, was on and showing her face from the wrong angle. but because the breath smelled familiar. Lilac and copper. The exact perfume her sister wore, mixed with blood. She didn't turn. She couldn't. Her limbs locked. The torch slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor, spinning wildly and casting frantic shadows across the walls. Then, a voice, right behind her ear. "I told you not to come looking." The scream didn't escape her throat. It just choked. A dry, soundless panic tearing at her lungs as she finally turned. And there was no one there. Nothing but the phone on the floor. Still recording. Still glowing. She picked it up with trembling fingers. It was recording a video, dated April 19th. 2 years ago. The last day her sister was seen alive. But the location? Eelmoor Street warehouse. Right where Rena stood. The screen crackled. A girl's face came into view. Wet hair. Shaky hands. And then the whisper. "He said he needs blood to remember." He said, "He forgets who he is unless he drinks." Rena dropped the phone. It bounced against the concrete with a flat slap. She backed away, only to crash into something behind her. She spun. But what stood in the hallway wasn't human. The shape was wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Its head tilted too far sideways, like the neck had been reset incorrectly. Its arms? Bare, veined, stretched. The skin looked pale but waxy. And in the flickering light, Rena could swear the thing had stitches running from jaw to collarbone. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching. Then it spoke, with her sister's voice. "Why didn't you stop him?" Flashback. 2 years ago. Rena had missed the last call. She remembered the moment. She was at a pub, laughing too loud, phone buried in her coat. A single voicemail left unread until the next morning. Ria's voice. Low. Frantic. "Rena, I think someone's following me. He knows my name. He said he saw me at the donation clinic. I didn't tell anyone about that. How did he?" Click. No second message. No second chance. Now, back in the warehouse, the stitched figure stepped forward, and its face changed. The more it neared her, the more it began to look like Ria. Her lips, her cheekbones, but the eyes? Still hollow, still red-ringed, still something else. Rena stepped backward, only to hit another wall. Except, it wasn't a wall. It was soft, breathing. Another figure was behind her. She spun. A man this time. No shirt. No shoes. Skin like porcelain. Eyes black. Teeth faintly glinting. He smiled. "She tastes like you. It runs in the family." Rena screamed and swung her torch. The blow landed on his face with a crack, splitting skin. But instead of recoiling, he sighed. Like it was pleasure. "You have no idea what I am," he whispered. "I don't kill for fun. I harvest for memory." Flashback. Ria had volunteered at a clinic that collected rare blood types. They called it Project Au Bleu, a sub-study for people with unique antigens. Rena remembered teasing her about it. "Careful, Ria. That sounds like the beginning of a horror movie." But Ria was proud. "They said my blood helps with memory disorders." Now Rena's own memory snapped. The man before her, she had seen him before. A faded article in a psychology journal her sister left on the kitchen counter. About a man who claimed he could taste memory. A radical theory. The article called him a fraud. His name? Dr. Victor Kale. Except he'd disappeared 10 years ago, after a patient died of exsanguination. No trial. No funeral. No body. Just gone. And now he stood in front of her, smiling like he never left. "Rena," he said, "do you remember what you smelled when she died?" She didn't answer, because suddenly, she did. Lilac perfume. And copper. The same mix now flooding the air. Victor stepped forward again. "I don't just drink blood," he said. "I drink who they are. Their last thoughts. Their strongest emotions." He leaned in closer, mouth by her ear. "And your sister's last memory was you?" Ignoring her call. It was the voice, Ria's voice, that shattered the air. Not a memory, not a recording, but her voice, alive and trembling, coming from something that wasn't fully human anymore. "He fed on me. And now I remember everything. Rena's knees gave out. Not from fear. Not yet. From something worse, recognition. The kind of recognition that goes deeper than the brain. Something buried in the bones. Because the stitched figure stepping out from the shadows, it didn't just sound like Rhea. It moved like her. Trembled like her. And it looked at Rena the same way Rhea did the last time they fought. Eyes wet. Mouth shut tight. Heart shouting. Rena tried to speak, but the words felt foreign in her mouth. Rhea? The figure twitched. Once. Like a puppet on a glitching string. Victor Kale watched quietly, tilting his head like a curator admiring his gallery. She's not your sister, he said softly. Not anymore. She's a composite. Flashback. 1 year ago. Rena's memory. A box she never opened again. Inside, Rhea's journals. The last entry was short, disturbingly calm. If I disappear, don't look for me. Don't trust anyone who claims to be helping, especially if they ask about the clinic. There was a sketch taped beside it. A circle of needles forming a shape like an eye. Rena had dismissed it as paranoia. Now, behind Victor, the same symbol was carved into the warehouse floor. Fresh. Bleeding. The stitched figure stood still. And then, spoke again. Only this time not in Rhea's voice, but in another one. A deep, terrified voice. Male. Please let me out. I don't belong in here. Rena flinched. What is that? She screamed. Victor turned, calmly. Ah, he sighed. That's Marcus. Former paramedic. Severe survivor's guilt. Loved blood, hated accidents. He was a cocktail of trauma. Not bad to drink, but better preserved. He gestured casually to the figure's stitched chest. She's not one person. She's 6. Rena's brain cracked around the edges. Thoughts spiraled. Her sister's face, fused with others. Her voice mixed with strangers. This wasn't resurrection. This was replication. Victor hadn't just killed them. He had collected them, drank them, assembled them. I'm not a vampire, he said, as if reading her thoughts. That's a fairy tale. I'm a neurologist. He took a step closer, and Rena finally saw it. His arms were covered in ink, but not tattoos. Coordinates. Dozens of them, carved in tiny surgical lines. Every victim, he whispered, leaves behind a scent of memory, a taste of who they were. But too much of it, and you forget who you are. He smiled. That's why I keep pieces. To anchor myself. Rena felt her legs trying to run, but her mind locked them in place. Where is my sister? She whispered. What did you do to her? Not that thing. Victor's eyes darkened. She gave herself freely. You don't remember. Flashback. 2 years ago. Rain. Rena's apartment. The door had been ajar when she got home. Rhea had left her something on the kitchen table. A note. 3 words. He remembers me. Rena had burned it. She didn't want to know. She told herself it was just Rhea unraveling again. Another episode. Another spiral. She never asked questions. Now, in the flickering torchlight, the stitched woman moved forward. And she whispered, I chose this. Rena stepped back. No, you didn't. I did, the voice insisted. Because he said, if I let him drink my fear, he'd forget me. And you'd be safe. Victor chuckled behind her. She bargained her soul for your ignorance. How poetic. His voice dipped, now almost seductive. But I remembered her anyway, because she was delicious. Rena lunged. The torch swung, cracked across his cheek. He staggered, not from pain but from surprise. Blood streaked down his face. Thick and dark, almost black. But the stitched woman didn't flinch. She turned to Rena and said, I can show you where she is, but you won't like what's left. The key was still warm. That was the first thing Rena noticed when the stitched woman placed it in her hand. Warm, slick, and pulsing slightly, like it had its own heartbeat. The eye symbol carved into the silver seemed to twitch as her fingers closed around it. Not figuratively, literally, like the metal reacted to her touch. Behind her, Victor smiled like a man watching his trap tighten. "You're already halfway there," he said. "Might as well see what you begged to forget." Rena turned toward the trapdoor. It yawned open at her feet, wooden, iron-framed, with thick claw-like hinges. The stairs below it descended into complete blackness. No sound, no movement, except for that voice. That dry, papery whisper rising from below. "Remember, remember, remember." She looked back at the stitched woman, at whatever was left of her sister. "Will I see her?" Rena asked. The voice that answered was two-toned. Part Rhea, part someone else. "You'll see what's left of her mind. But it's not a memory. It's a room. And once you open it, some things won't go back in." Flashback. 2 years ago. Rena found Rhea in the kitchen at 2 a.m. She'd been sleepwalking again, standing in front of the microwave, eyes wide open, muttering the same line over and over. "Blood remembers blood, but it forgets kindness." Rena had grabbed her shoulders and tried to shake her awake. Rhea's eyes snapped to focus just long enough to say, "He's building a place where the past doesn't die." Rena thought it was just psychosis. But now, standing over the stairwell in the warehouse on Eelmoor Street, she wasn't sure anymore. She descended. One step, then another. The air grew thick, humid, and alive, like she was walking into lungs instead of walls. Each stair groaned, not with age, but with intention. The deeper she went, the more her body ached in strange places, behind her eyes, in her molars, along her spine. And the whispering grew louder. She reached the bottom. The room wasn't a room. It was a chamber carved out of stone, damp and pulsing faintly, as though buried inside the body of something much larger. A single light flickered above, a bulb hanging from a blood-stained cord. In the center of the chamber was a glass tank. And inside the tank, a brain, floating, pulsing, hooked to wires, wrapped in tubes that connected to jars of blood. Real blood, fresh, swirling slowly like ink in water. Rena stumbled backward, gagging. But behind her, the trapdoor slammed shut, and the voice, louder now, spoke from the tank. "You left me." It wasn't just any voice. It was Rhea's, only now digitized, stretched, hollowed out. "Where were you when I called?" The lights above buzzed harder. The walls pulsed, and the jars feeding the tank began to bubble. "Why didn't you answer?" A video screen flickered to life beside the tank. Footage began to play. Rhea in a lab, strapped to a chair. Victor standing behind her with a syringe the size of a dagger. "This is day 6, he said. Her memory responses are still erratic. She resists the forgetfulness. She clings too hard to identity." He turned to the camera and smiled. "Let's try emotional collapse. That usually makes the tissue more absorbent." He injected her, and she screamed, but not from pain, from recognition. "He lied to me. He said he'd forget me." The tank shuddered. A wave of heat burst through the chamber, and Rena collapsed, clutching her head as images crashed into her brain. Her sister on a hospital table. Victor's hands soaked in blood. The phrase "blood archive" burned into metal plates. And then, a face. Her own. Flashback. Buried memory. She was 17. Rhea had passed out after donating blood at the clinic. Victor, then Dr. Kale, had been there. "You're both rare," he'd said, handing Rena a sugar cube. "Why does that matter?" she asked. He had smiled. "Because rare blood carries ancestral memory. And I intend to remember everything." Back in the chamber, the voice grew deeper. It wasn't Rhea now. It was something older. A voice stitched together from hundreds. "You were the gift she made, the bargain she struck. Her body for your silence. Her mind for my vault." The tank cracked. Fluid began to leak. The blood pooled toward Rena's boots. "Do you want to see what you cost her?" the voice asked. And from the shadows, 6 doors slid open, each one leaking light, each one humming with a different sound. Laughter, sobbing, screaming, whispering, and one that made no noise at all. The last door had her name on it. "Rena, there's a terror that goes beyond fear. It doesn't scream or shake or beg for help. It waits quietly, like an old photograph you didn't know was watching you back. Rena stood in the blood-slick chamber, heart thudding like footsteps on marble. Behind her, the shattered tank still oozed. The mass of pulsing tissue, part brain, part face, part something else, twitched on the ground. But it wasn't the creature that froze her. It was the sixth door, the silent one, the one marked Rena. It hadn't opened like the others. It had breathed. The other doors, each humming with sound, spilled sickly yellow light from within. Door 1. Sobbing, young, feminine, full of grief. Door 2. A baby crying. Door 3. A man laughing, unhinged, rhythmic. Door 4. A whisper looped again and again. He's watching you from the inside. Door 5. Pure silence. No echo. No breath. Just emptiness, too empty. And door 6. Her name, carved into the steel. Not etched. Not written. Branded. Rena's mouth went dry. Her name looked familiar. Not just because it was her name, but because it was written in her sister's handwriting. Like a signature, a warning, or an invitation. Behind her, the memory creature that had slithered from the tank began twitching. Every time it moved, it mimicked someone else's face. An old man, a screaming woman, a child with eyes rolled back. And then, her own. Rena turned away. She couldn't look at it anymore. The stitched woman's voice echoed down from the trapdoor above. The truth won't kill you, but it will change you. She reached for the door. Her fingers hovered over the handle. It wasn't a knob or a latch, it was a pulse, like a living vein. She pressed her palm to it, and the door recognized her. It peeled open, not with a creak, but a sigh. Inside was a perfect replica of her childhood bedroom. Down to the peeling sticker on the mirror she cracked at 13. The glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. The posters. The scent of laundry detergent and paperbacks. Her bed. Her books. And someone sitting at the desk. Back to her. Long black hair. Small frame. Rena's voice caught in her throat. Rhea? The figure didn't turn. Flashback. Age 14. Rena is screaming in the kitchen. Rhea has just thrown a plate. Shattered it. Their mother is crying. Their father is silent. You always ruin everything. Rena shouted. You don't see things. Rhea screamed back. What does that mean? But Rhea never answered. That was the first time she'd cut herself. And the first time Rena realized her sister didn't just hurt. She remembered things no one else did. Now, in the replica room, the seated figure finally turned. It wasn't Rhea. Not really. It was a perfect facsimile, her face, her posture. But the eyes were black. Not in color. In content. Hollow and still. Like film left out too long in the sun. I kept this for you, the fake Rhea said. Her voice was flat. Robotic. This is where you stopped remembering who I was. On the desk in front of her sat a single cassette tape. Labeled in red ink. Confession. Rena. Age 9. Her hands trembled. She hadn't seen a cassette in years. And she had no memory of making one. But the player clicked on by itself. A younger voice began to play. Her own. I don't want to go back to the clinic. He touched my arm weird. He said my blood was special. He said he could make me immortal. Victor's voice followed. That's our secret, Rena. You and me. Blood remembers. The tape hissed. Then stopped. The fake Rhea stared at her. Do you remember now why I disappeared? Rena's knees buckled. I thought it was your mental health. I thought you broke. You were always seeing things. No. The voice snapped. You knew. But you chose to forget. Flashback. Clinic hallway. 9 years old. Victor crouching beside her. Your sister's blood might unlock something ancient, he whispered. But yours could sustain it. She told no one, because he said if she spoke, Rhea would die. So she didn't. In the bedroom, the walls began to rot. The posters withered. The furniture cracked. The ceiling collapsed inward. And the fake Rhea stood, face twisting. I gave myself to him because you let him believe you'd forget. And you did. Tears burned down Rena's face. I was 9, but you remembered the fear, didn't you? The room burst into flame, silent flame, cold flame, memory flame, and behind the burning walls, the voice from the tank whispered again. Blood archives never forget, but the mind lies. Suddenly, the fake Rhea opened her mouth, and a flood of black teeth spilled out. Hundreds, clicking, glistening. The teeth formed words. Drink me. Cliffhanger ending of part 5. The room collapsed entirely, and standing in the ash, Rena saw her real sister, or what was left of her. Emaciated, veins pulsing violet, skin stitched, eyes weeping blood, but awake. She whispered, "You remembered too late, but you can still feed me your truth." Rena took a step forward, and behind her, Victor's voice rang out. Choose, Rena. Her mind or your memory. One lives, one dies. Rena stood in the smoldering ruin of her childhood bedroom, now a nightmare chamber that breathed, bled, and whispered. The ash settled at her feet like snow. Fake Rhea was gone. The desk, the bed, the room itself dissolved. Only one thing remained. Her. The real Rhea. Or the shell that used to be her. She was on her knees, draped in what looked like medical rags stitched together from patient gowns. Her eyes were bloodshot and vacant, staring upward not at Rena, but through her, like someone watching a movie of a life they used to live. And yet, she smiled, not with joy, with relief. "You came," she whispered, and then, faintly, "He said you wouldn't." Rena dropped to her knees beside her. The stench of antiseptic and rot clung to Rhea like a second skin. Her hands were cold and trembling, fingers curled in a fetal grasp. Dozens of puncture wounds traced her veins, some old, some still wet. "I'm here," Rena choked out. "I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know it was this bad." Rhea didn't blink. She just whispered, "He kept me in your memories. You just stopped looking." Flashback. Age 11. Rena in the hallway, ear pressed against her parents' bedroom door. Her mother sobbing. Her father, "She's not sick. Something happened at that clinic. She won't talk. She says she hears things when she bleeds." Her mother, "You don't think someone did something to her?" And then silence. Not agreement. Denial. Rena never mentioned it again. Not when Rhea had night terrors. Not when she started fainting randomly, because Rena didn't want to see what was right in front of her. Now here, surrounded by the aftermath of all those silences, Rhea tried to lift her hand. Her wrist shook. Her skin split where stitches had fused two veins together. She touched Rena's cheek. "I kept a piece of you," she whispered. "That's how I survived." Behind them, a door slammed shut. Victor's voice bled through the walls, calm as ever. "You're in the core now, Rena. My archives vault. No one gets in unless I want them to, and no one gets out without a price." A wall slid back. Another chamber opened beyond the ruins, and in it a metal slab, 2 beds, 2 needles, 2 blood bags. A single screen hovered above them, glowing red. "Choose one. Preserve memory. Restore mind." Victor's voice continued. "One of you can leave, whole, intact, remembering everything. But only one. The other's mind will become food. For the rest." Rena felt her legs tremble. "You're insane." "I'm curing insanity," Victor cut in. "You want a monster? Look in the mirror." Your silence made her useful. She was broken but rich, a mind full of grief, guilt, and fear. She fed my research. Rhea clutched Rena's arm. "Don't do it," she whispered. "He's lying. If you take it, if you choose memory, I disappear forever. I can't lose you again. You already did." Rena stepped into the chamber. The screens followed her like eyes. "Place your hand on the choice." Her mind split open. Every buried flashback rushed in at once. Rhea, silent in the car ride home from the clinic. Rhea's blood on the bathroom tiles. Rhea's voicemail, begging for help. Rhea's drawing of a face without eyes. All of it. She turned to the 2 options. Preserve memory. Rena keeps everything. Leaves whole. But Ria's mind is erased permanently, absorbed into the archive. Restore mind. Ria's consciousness is restored. But Rena must surrender all memories of her sister. Every moment, every laugh, every tear, gone. Ria looked at her with wet, broken eyes. I don't want to haunt you anymore. Rena's hands hovered. I don't want to forget you. Ria smiled faintly. Maybe that's the only way to save me. Flashback. Age 8. There at the park. Ria falls and skins her knee. Rena ties a ribbon around it and says, now it's a royal wound. You're protected forever. Ria laughed and whispered, promise me you'll always remember me like this. Now, standing over the terminal of Victor's cruel machine, Rena whispered, I promise, and placed her hand on restore mind. The lights flared violently. The air sucked out of the room. The screen glowed white, not red. And Rena fell backward as the memory flooded out of her, like water ripping through a dam. She felt Ria's name vanish, her face blur, their childhood flicker and die inside her mind. But Ria gasped. Her eyes cleared. Her shoulders straightened. She looked around, present. She looked at Rena and said, who are you? The moment Rena pressed her hand to restore mind, it felt like something inside her detonated. She didn't black out. No, it was worse than that. She stayed awake while her memories unraveled, like a person watching themselves drown from inside their own skin. One by one, her thoughts, her identity peeled away. She remembered her name. Then she didn't. She remembered her sister's face. Then it faded. She remembered pain, but didn't know why. Each memory didn't vanish like a dream. They burned out, like paper soaked in bleach. Clean, empty, gone. Across from her, Ria gasped. Her spine arched, her jaw clenched, and her real eyes cleared. Bright, wet, alive. She looked at the screen, at the blood-soaked chamber, at the girl slumped across from her. Then whispered, like a prayer she didn't understand, Rena. But Rena just stared ahead, blinking slowly. No tears, no words, no grief, only a faint smile on her lips, like someone who had freed someone else and lost the reason why. Behind them, the walls cracked open, not like plaster, not like stone. They breathed open, and the thing that stepped through wasn't Victor. It was what came before him, a body of ink-stained bone, a head made of writhing memory threads, dozens of mouths, none speaking, but everyone remembering. It was the archive itself, the intelligence that Victor had fed for decades, an ancient consciousness that fed not on bodies but on who people used to be. It spoke without sound. She chose. One to live, one to lose. Victor stumbled forward, coughing, his skin now pale and stretched thin, his eyes bloodshot, veins spidering toward the center. You see now, he rasped, voice cracking. It was never about immortality. It was about resonance. What survives, what reshapes, what the archive keeps. He turned to Rena. You gave up your past to restore hers. That makes you the final meal. Ria stood between them. No, she whispered, shaking. She gave me back myself. You don't get to erase her again. Victor laughed. She erased herself, but the archive didn't respond. Instead, it lowered itself toward Rena. Tentacles of memory brushed her temples, searching, tasting, and then pausing, because even in the blankness of her mind, one image remained, a ribbon, wrapped around a scraped knee, and a child's voice whispering, now it's a royal wound. You're protected forever. The archive trembled. Victor stepped back. No, that's impossible. She should be empty. But Ria remembered it too. The same wound, the same day, the same voice, and in that shared memory, tattered, faded, fragile, the archive froze, then split open, screaming. The chamber shattered. The tank exploded. Blood rushed like a tidal wave. Victor collapsed, clutching his face as memory flooded into him in reverse. All the minds he'd stolen, surging back at once. His last scream wasn't of pain. It was of recognition. I remember who I was. And then, he vanished, folded inward like paper. Gone. Silence. The archive collapsed into ash. The lights died, and only two remained. Ria. And Rena. She helped Rena to her feet. Rena blinked, eyes glassy, still hollow. But when their hands touched, Rena whispered, "The ribbon was red." Ria nodded, tears streaking down her cheeks. "You do remember me." "Just that." Rena smiled faintly. "But maybe that's enough." 1 month later. London. A flat by the river. Quiet. Clean. Too many books. Ria lives there now. She wakes up screaming some nights. There are holes in her memory, but the pieces coming back are hers. Not Victor's. Not the archives. Hers. She has a photo on the mantle. Two little girls in a park. One with scraped knees, the other tying a ribbon. No names on the back. Just a line written in fading pen. Royal wounds heal slower, but they never vanish. And in a quiet village miles away, a girl who calls herself Ray volunteers at a children's shelter. She smiles often, doesn't talk much about her past. But sometimes, when she closes her eyes, she smells lilacs, and rust, and the faintest trace of a ribbon wrapped tight around her soul. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.